Howdy everybody. I'd like to make a quick video showing how to assemble a, I think it's called an MMDVM hotspot for doing DMR. This is one that I've already assembled. Hopefully you're seeing this okay. I'm not the best at these camera things. Anyway, this is a kit you can buy on eBay or something. This is one I previously assembled and I made a lot of mistakes on it. Several, not a lot. One is when this is snapped together. When I first assembled the unit that I had bought off eBay, this SMA coupler I mounted flush to the board and then soldered, and just for the maximum strength, whatever. And I was actually wrong. When this is installed and this is all together, I only had like one thread hanging out of here, and it wasn't enough for the antenna to screw down on. And so that was one mistake. The second mistake I had made was this OLED display. If you guys notice, there's two rows of holes, and I'll show you on this other board here in a minute. I had put these 4 pins in the wrong set of holes. So I had to use heat to unsolder those, move the board up, and it wasn't really my fault because the board, I think, is labeled incorrectly, and I'll show you again. This wire I had put in, I had to use some heat to get these solders free, and then pull this SMA coupler out, and by doing so I ruined the board. I got too much heat. I don't know what's bad about it. It powers on, this display works, it powers on, and these LEDs flash and stuff, but I don't know, it just does not work. Anyway, so I bought another kit at my expense. It's the expense of learning, which is good. You can't really take that away once you learn something. This is Raspberry Pi Zero W, and I've also soldered the headers onto here that interact with these. But anyway, enough about this old board. My mistake. I'll never make a mistake again. Well, hopefully not. Anyway, so when you get this kit in the mail, you're going to get both halves of the aluminum case, an antenna, your little OLED display, and then you open up the static bag. And I guess there's my second antenna. Don't really need that one. There's your antenna. If my fingers would work. You're going to get 2 headers. You're going to get your SMA coupler, and then you're going to get your board. And anyway, and then you'll have to go and purchase. Oh, you also get a little bag of screws and a couple spacers, a couple standoffs. And then I went to Micro Center. This Raspberry Pi Zero W was on sale for $5. So if you're not familiar with Raspberry Pi, it's a little single board computer, and there's version, I believe number 1 came out first. There's 1, 2, 3, and 0. 0 is a lot smaller, but this one has built-in Wi-Fi. Usually it's $10, and it was on sale for $5, so pretty good. Anyway, let me adjust the cameras, give you guys a little bit better view. Okay, that's a little bit better now. Okay. I've already got my soldering iron nice and warm. Might not be able to see it, but it's there. And I think to start, we'll probably take these headers and put them in the board. I took the camera the wrong direction. Let's try this again here. How's that now? Probably a little bit better. Again, sorry, I'm not really good at doing this. Got some solder here. And I've got the Raspberry Pi. Oh, I also wanted to tell you about the OLED display. If you notice, I don't know if you can see that or not, it's marked 3.3 ground, SCL, and SDA, I think. You would think that you would use the bottom set of holes that are labeled, but you don't use the top set of holes for this display. I wanted to say that before I forgot, but anyway, I'll show you that once we put that display in. Anyway, so start off, put your headers in this board, and then take your Raspberry Pi, and it really, you know, there's two rows of pins, basically goes together just like that. And you'll have to prop this up with something to make it parallel. It's not really the best thing to use, but it'll work. Got your solder. Hopefully this is coming out on video here. Soldering iron cleaner, or solder tip cleaner. What I like to do to solder is, I'm not an expert, but I do this a lot. I'm going to start with one joint. You want to put your solder on the joint, heat up your pin, push your solder into it, and done. That's all it takes to solder. Now I'm going to take my little antenna, my wrong spacer out, and once you have one solder in, actually I probably need to put a little bit more solder on that one joint. You want to make sure that these two pieces are parallel, which they appear to be pretty good. Once you solder all these, you're not going to be able to move them, so always be sure that these two are parallel. Anyway, if they're not, and I don't think they are 100%, you can take and just heat up that solder joint one time. And all I did was I pushed up on the board here, and I think that looks pretty good now. So I'm going to go ahead and solder the rest, including adding a tiny bit more solder to my first joint there. Always keep your soldering iron tip nice and clean. If you, and this is an old worn out one, but if you need to, tin it a little bit, clean it off again. Sometimes you guys use a sponge or with water, something like that. Anyway, I'm gonna hit this first joint one more time. And if you guys aren't experts at soldering, it's okay. To solder, all you have to do is put your soldering iron tip, and you want to be able to touch both the outer, you know, the trace on the board and the pin at the same time to transfer some good heat to both of those, and then push your solder into the joint. I need to get a better soldering tip cleaner. This stuff works really good, but my soldering iron tip is rough and it pulls those little pieces of brass shavings or whatever they are. And once you get rolling, it's not too bad. We'll just inspect these real quick. I'm basically happy with those. I got a little bit of solder on the board, which is okay. Should come right off. Then we can move to the next set of holes. Oh, by the way, once these are soldered, you can still unplug this if you need to, which we probably will. So, anyway. Oh, that was a bad one. That's my first one there. Okay, if you can tell, I got a little crazy on the solder there, but it's okay. I don't have my desoldering tool with me. I don't have any wick with me. I can just probably touch it. So, okay, it should be okay. I think there was a pad that was next to it that I just happened to get the solder connected. It's not the best soldering tip. It works, but I think that should be okay. Let me look at it through my magnifying device here real quick. Yeah, that's fine. That should be fine. Okay, next step, we'll separate these. And we'll set the Raspberry Pi Zero aside. Next thing to do is, I'd say we should put the display in. So this is called an OLED display. I honestly don't know what OLED stands for. LED is probably an LED type display instead of an LCD. I don't know. Anyway, so you have 4 pins labeled VCC, which is voltage, ground, SEL, SDA. 3.3 would be your VCC. Anyway, again, let me get this up to the camera. Hopefully you can see that. Like I said, I suck at doing this. And I just dropped my display. That's great. Just 1 second. Well, it seems like it's okay. Anyway, so do not use the bottom set of holes that are labeled as such. You have to use the top set of holes. And I only learned that because after I had made the mistake of this once, I was searching and searching and searching and searching online for anything I could find, and I didn't find. I found one, one guy's page that he was assembling one of these that wasn't even the same model as this, but he had done the same thing. It was probably a similar board. It was larger. I think it was on a Raspberry Pi, 1 or 2, maybe 3. It was a board like this, but it was larger. It wasn't even the same kind of thing. It was the same, Hotspot. It just wasn't the same model. Anyway, so I saw his and I realized where I'd gone wrong. Anyway, so for the last time, do not use this bottom set of holes. Use the top set. So put your display through there, set it down so the pins are hanging through all the way. Now, I'll need something to kind of put in between these two. Use a static bag just to kind of space it out. When this sits like this, it's going to be at a funny angle, so hopefully it's coming out. So you want to be able to, prop it up a little bit. And I'm sure there's little plastic things you can use, whatever. I just use whatever I got handy. And we'll adjust this here in a sec. In fact, it's a little bit too much. Well, I'll show you what I'll do. Clean your soldering iron tip. Heat up your pad and heat up the pin. A little bit of solder. Take your heat off. Now if you look, those two are not parallel, which is probably not a huge deal, but it's just not, plus you can tell this was sitting at an angle and everything's off. So what I'll do is I'm going to put my thumb and my finger here, push those two kind of together. A little tiny bit of heat. Well, it didn't work out so well, did it? Sorry, I'll get it. Yeah, it's a little bit better. There. I'm happy with that. Oh, now it's crooked. Sorry. One last adjustment here. Okay. We're basically straight here. We're parallel there, and we're flush there. So I'm happy with that. I know there's a lot of adjusting, but I got extra goober on the pin. Okay. And hey, like I said, I never claimed to be an expert, so let's go with the far pin. Okay. Alright, so you got 4 solders to hold the display where it should go. Now, I will show you, next we're going to solder this SMA coupler on, but next I'll show you why you have to space it the way you do. So when this case is all together, you want your display to basically touch off to the case. And if you put this SMA coupler in, and then you put the case on till the display touches, you only have a couple threads hanging out. There's not even enough threads in there to really engage this center pin. And so in order to really engage this properly, you can basically thread that together, not real tight, leave a little bit of gap, and then when you put this together, now you can see that this is actually screwed too much together. So if I unscrew it slightly, just till those start to go through the board. That's just about where I'd like it to be. Again, like I said, I had massive problems last time that were pretty much caused by me, but I also was learning and whatnot. Anyway, so what I think I'll have to do is, I don't have very many hands. I only have the standard issue 2 hands. What I'm going to have to do is probably, I don't know what I'll do. Let me just pause the video, and I'm going to get one solder on just so you can guys see how everything lines up. Okay, basically I have this where I want it. Just put a little dab of solder on the end. Looks like it's straight up and down, which is good. I'm going to solder the rest of these. Just kind of prop this up on something. Hopefully it's not really soldered all that well. And I know the instinct is to take this, hopefully you can see that. I don't know if you can see that or not. The instinct is to take and flush mount this to the board, which is what has been everything I've always ever seen. But in this particular case, it cannot be, just because of this metal enclosure. So anyway, there's not a lot of pins sticking through, but that's how it goes. Next I'll solder the center one here. Okay. I'll do like a final solder on my last one here. Got a little too much solder on there now. Oh, that's ugly. Should be okay there. Cool down the board a little bit. Okay. Might be very slightly crooked, maybe not. I think it looks okay. Alright, now there's another reason why you have to space this off the board. That is, when you go to screw down your antenna, you can't have the antenna go into this glass screen here, so that's what you got to do anyway. So when this goes into the case, you notice there's a lot of threads sticking out. So when you go to thread this in, you have some good engagement of that center pin to the the center of that SMA coupler. Now, what you got to be careful with is, if you screw this down too much, I think it might actually be very slightly off, maybe not. If you screw this down too much, you're going to put pressure up on the board, and you don't want to break those solders. But anyway, I know it seems like it's ugly, but if I had soldered that flush to the board, this would barely engage, and it just would not work. And so anyway, okay, at this point I think we can actually start the real assembly. When this thing's all done, I guess I can tear it off now. Pull off the little screen protector. Alright, so to actually get this assembled, now that the soldering is done, open up your little baggie of screws and spacers. Hopefully you're seeing all this. So take your bottom case and take the Raspberry Pi, and notice on one end there's your card slot for your little storage. The other end is a ribbon cable. So the ribbon cable goes to this slot here, and the kind of, I don't know, trapezoid shaped oval opening goes here. And also, when this is all together, I gotta remember which side to put the spacers on. Let's see. Yeah, we'll end up putting the spacers on this side. So when you take this off, the side with your headers is what gets these short screws. If you can see, one long screw, one short screw. Just take the short screw, get it kind of in the hole, take your little Phillips screwdriver, get it started, put the next screw in. This isn't really the best screwdriver for this, but it should work. You probably need a number 1 Phillips. I don't think this is a number 1. I don't know what it is. Anyway, hold it nice and straight because there is a little bit of play. Run both screws down and just give it a gentle little, just crank them down a little bit. Alrighty. I don't think my holes line up very well, the other 2 holes. There. It's a little better. So all you gotta do is put both your Phillips in, and then just make sure that your threads line up with these 2 holes here. Okay. So next, I'm going to put both Phillips here and here, and then hold that upside down, get your spacers on. And I just lost my spacer. It's okay. Yeah, I just lost both of them. I'm a fumbling idiot. There. Get both screws started, then you can just gently push down your headers. And I'm just going to run these down gently. It doesn't really take much to get them tight. You don't want to compress the plastic, because the more you crank them down, the more you're going to pull the board down. Anyway, so that is now assembled. And last but not least, if you take your cover, so I don't know if you just want to see that one last time. I'll just kind of show all the different angles, sides. Oh, in this application we're not using the ribbon cable, but we do need access to put your card in, so anyway. But you can insert it through there. Last things last, take your case and just kind of slide it straight down. Make sure everything lines up. And you know you're together there when your little tabs end up all going through the slots there. Okay, and you see how many threads we have sticking out of here. And you have some, you can actually start and get a couple threads on, and then you can feel it change, like right about in there. You can feel that center pin engaging. So screw down. You don't want to go too tight, like I said before. Anyway, so that's how to assemble it. And I'm going to go get a cell phone charger, and I'll come back and I'll show you guys that this will turn on. So alrighty, I've got an old cell phone charger cable, And I forget which one of these. I know one of these says, whoops, there goes my radio. I know one of these says power. And I believe it's the inner one here. So take this and plug it in. Looks like we're firing up. It's going to take a moment in order to have the display come on, but we'll just wait there for a few moments. Oh, you know what? I'm an idiot. Hold on, let me unplug this. And this is the beauty of recording something live. Guess what I don't have in? The card. Take the card out. I never claimed to be a genius either, so hey. Alright, insert card. Now why don't we try this out? Okay, it is still going to take a few moments to boot up, so I think it might take up to 3 minutes to have your display come on. So yeah. And so if you look here, we are booted up. MMDVM is working. I don't know why it goes, wow, it's crazy. It goes orange up here at the top. I don't know why that is. Hopefully it's not that my display is bad or something, but it is functioning. Maybe it's supposed to do that. I don't know. The other one did not do that, but anyway, just for giggles, so you guys know that this old one did function. I'll plug that in. Okay, as you can see, this is it is running. It is Excuse me. It is working. It is running. This will not interact with the radio, so I don't know why. I just know that I burned out something in the board when I used all the heat to move this again. So anyway, this old one at least does power on, and it's on Wi-Fi. So.